Hello, everybody. Today I wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk about some things that I noticed in that first set of speeches as I'm going along, kind of pulling out things that people are commonly doing collectively as a whole group. I'm seeing some issues that I kind of want to just work out as we go along, and I think that will help you in moving forward for future assignments. And so the first thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is I know that first set of speeches, that impromptu speech, is kind of an unfair way to kind of start, which is why I never grade the assignment on a strict rubric, because I give you a topic. I don't give you any time to think about it. You don't have any time to prepare. You have no idea what I'm going to ask you to do, and then you literally have to turn around and talk about that within a couple of seconds after receiving your topic and record yourself. And so, but it's a good way for me to see a lot of the habits that you naturally have when you're speaking, things that you can work on, because I've kind of taken you out of your comfort zone. If I'd given you a speech that you've had time to think about, that you've had time to rehearse, something that you know a lot about, then it would be a different set of circumstances. So I know that a lot of you are probably really uncomfortable with that first speech, and that's a good thing, because it gives us a good jumping off point to start having conversations about the things that we need to adjust, the things that you're doing well, but the things that you also need to work on and adjust. So I wanted to kind of give you a couple of tips and tricks for practicing a lot of those things that I'm noting on your rubrics, specifically with eye contact, with posture, and with your your movement and your immediacy, your gestures, that kind of thing. So that's what I wanted to kind of talk about today in this video. We've kind of taken speech out of its initial home, which was in front of a classroom, and so you kind of have to learn a lot of those skills on the fly as you're talking in front of a big group of people. There's a lot more pressure, so we're kind of reinventing the same experience with a video camera, and it's never going to be quite exactly the same, but the skill set that you can work on is going to be useful in all areas of speaking, whether it be in front of a device or a camera or in front of a large group of people. So the first thing I want to talk about is making sure that you're standing up when you're speaking. Sometimes when we sit in a chair, our brain tells us that that's the time to relax. So our posture is never going to be quite right. We're going to more likely to slump if we're trying too hard to remain kind of upright and erect. We look a little stiff, and so you want to stand up so that you can have, obviously it makes it more formal. You're never going to give a speech where you're sitting down in a chair. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. So I would suggest that you find a place where you can record, where you can elevate your device up to an eye level so you're not having to look down at a camera. That will really help you. And watching your speeches back, it will also help you start diagnosing a lot of the things that I'm talking about when I'm giving you some feedback on your rubric. So make sure that you pull your camera up to eye level so that you're looking directly at the lens, so that you appear to be making direct eye contact with your audience, who is me for this particular case. But you want to make sure that that is at eye level. So elevate your device up, stand up. You don't have to do your whole body. You want to kind of think about, I can tell what your legs are doing while watching you. I've watched enough speeches, I've analyzed enough speeches to tell who's moving, who's shuffling back and forth from foot to foot, but I don't have to see that in order to do that. So you want to think about mid-range, maybe low waist up, to be able to be visible in the screen. You don't want to be too far back, because you're going to lose a little bit of that immediacy with your audience, and you're going to also lose a little bit of volume. But you want to think on that level so that you can take those skills, so that when you are speaking in front of a crowd, that you can be easily heard from a greater distance as well, okay? So midway up, make sure that I can see that in the camera screen, and your camera screen is directly in front of you so that you can make eye contact with your camera. All right, that being said, I want to talk about eye contact. I've got a trick for you for eye contact A lot of you tended to look off or look away, look to the left or to the right above the camera view. You would look down, that kind of thing. And, that takes away from your overall, your presence. Eye contact denotes that you're confident, that you are prepared, that you're ready. And I know with that situation, that particular situation, it was kind of unfair because you weren't ready. You weren't confident about what you were talking about. So it kind of the circumstances, but eye contact means that you're confident, that you're prepared, that you're ready, that you give your audience, that it helps you build a relationship with your audience, immediacy that we've talked about in some of the lectures. And so sometimes we have to fake it in order to make it, because we're not always confident to look somebody right in the eye. And let's be honest, sometimes looking somebody right in the eye for a lengthy period of time can feel a little bit creepy and intense. We know how we feel about that. And there's a certain level where, we don't want to make that kind of creepy eye contact. So what I always tell my students is when they're recording a video to imagine that there is a line, an invisible line, just slightly above the camera on your screen. Okay, you're going to want to take that line, and you're going to always want to picture it there, just right above your camera screen, and you're going to want to trace that line back and forth during the process of your speech. I'm not talking about darting back and forth with your eyes, because that also looks really weird, but just a slow, smooth, even trace of that line with your eyes left and right. It gives your brain something to think about. You're not watching yourself on the screen, because sometimes that can be distracting too. You're like, oh my gosh, did I just do that on the screen? And then you'll stall or stutter or something like that. But you want to just do a nice, smooth, even trace back and forth of your eyes on that invisible line. It looks like I'm giving direct eye contact, but I'm not looking directly at the camera, and I cannot see myself in the screen. I'm not watching myself on the video, so that I am more likely to pause or freeze if I see myself do something that I don't need to do, or I mess up somewhere. Okay? When you're talking in a big group, a way to do that, to make everybody in the audience feel included, is to trace a Z pattern with your eyes. So you start at the top of the Z and you pan just slightly above the heads of your audience, and then you'll come back at a diagonal, and then you'll trace to the other side. And that way you can encompass everybody within your eye contact. It makes people feel like you are talking with them more intimately. It helps you build an audience connection, which is important when you're giving a speech. Okay, the next thing, I need to check my time. I don't have my glasses so I can see 7:40. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is your posture. Standing up makes us feel a little bit uncertain, because we're afraid that we're going to move about, restless. We're maybe more restless when we're standing up. We know we're more likely to move. So I know getting you up out of your chair is already taking out of your comfort zone. But I'm going to teach you a couple of tricks to help with that. So you have a lot of power in your fingertips, and you can trick your brain into thinking that you're doing something with your hands in a very simple way. So remember, we're going to be waist up, nice erect posture. Our head is pointed towards our audience. We are looking at our audience, or just that, remember our invisible line. We want to take our hands, and we want to kind of, like you're holding a ball, maybe at waist level, you want to pull your hands down just slightly in front of your waist, and you want to either link them together just slightly. It's not a tight link. I'm not gripping. I'm not grasping. Okay, I just have a nice slight link to my fingers, so it's loose, right? I'm not gripping them like a death grip, or touching, just slightly touching your fingertips together. Now, I'm going to trick my brain into thinking I'm doing something with my hands, because I'm sending all this energy into that fingertip or into that link. Okay, so my fingertips are touching. I'm tricking my brain into thinking I'm doing something with my hands when I'm not actually moving my hands at all. My brain is saying, oh, you're doing something with your fingers, but it's because I'm focusing all that movement and restless energy into touching my two fingertips together, and that energy is kind of radiating back and forth between them. That gives me accessibility to be able to gesture when I need to, when I want to emphasize something. But I'm also not going to be flailing my arms around and my hands around as much when I'm focusing my energy on keeping those at that level that we were talking about. Okay? Again, not a grip. It makes you look too stiff and rigid. Just a nice loose touch, interlock, or a nice touch there. And be careful with your, mindful with your thumbs, like I'm playing a video game. Okay, so just kind of keep them at the same level. All right. So then let's talk about the movement into segue kind of into movement. Movement is not necessarily a bad thing. Excessive movement can be very distracting. When we're moving about, especially when we're giving a presentation, we're moving back and forth out of camera range, that kind of thing. If you're moving around in a classroom when you're giving a speech in front of a lot of people, you're going to find that movement can be a deterrent from your message because your audience becomes more focused on tracking your movement than they do about what's coming out of your mouth. So we always want to think about movement as something that's very purposeful. Okay? Gestures, body movement, body language, we want to think about that in a purposeful way. Is my movement detracting from my message, or is it emphasizing something? Okay? So again, keeping your hands in front of you will help you with those excessive gestures, and then you're only, if you need to use a gesture in order to emphasize something like on one hand and on the other hand, that kind of thing, you can do that without a lot of to-do. Also, the excessive, the little detractors that we do, like playing with our hair, playing with our watch, jingling a bracelet, those are all comfort mechanisms. We find comfort in those because it kind of helps us, it grounds us. Okay, touching your hair, right, girls? I know that you know what this is like. Sometimes it's just a very comforting thing. It's a very soothing thing. But we always want to think about what our movements and our gestures are saying to our audience, because everything can be a message. Playing with your hair too much might mean that you didn't wash your hair that morning. Your audience is picking up on the fact that if she keeps playing with that hair, it's looking a little greasy. Like, all these things can distract from your overall message. So you want to think about the things that you're doing and the message that it could possibly be sending to your audience. Jingling something, keeping your hands in your pockets and jingling something in your pocket, they can all send messages that you don't want your audience to try to interpret. Crossing your arms to make you look kind of gruff and grim and are bored. Shuffling back and forth from foot to foot, hands in your pockets, can make you seem antsy or irritated or nervous. So those are all things that we want to think about eradicating or getting rid of, so that we can use instead purposeful movement that enhances our speech rather than detracts from it. Okay, so these are things that I would suggest that you start working on, practicing on. Get yourself a mirror, get in front of a mirror, record yourself so you can watch yourself talking. Even if it's just picking up a book and reading and trying to maintain eye contact while you're reading, you can start seeing and analyzing your own performance and start picking up on the little things that you're doing while you're speaking that can be detracting from your overall purpose or overall intent or overall presentation. So I recommend doing that about 3 to 5 minutes a day, working on your posture, working on your eye contact, working on all the other little things that I'm putting in your speaking resources folder. I think this week it's like intonation and inflection and working on that kind of thing. Those things, if you're practicing 3 to 5 minutes a day, you're going to find it's going to become easier and easier for you to do these types of assignments and feel more confident and more put together when you start doing more of your assignments here in EH 141. Okay, I hope you guys have a good day. I look forward to hearing from you soon.